What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. And of course you guys have this question: does Dendro change anything? And I'm sure some of you who have been playing a lot extensively, testing with Kale, testing with Dendro MC, would say with certainty that yes, Dendro does in fact change things. It shakes up the meta, it offers new and exciting ways to play the game, and I'll be honest, it's far more complex than I originally thought a couple patches before. When I was theorizing for Dendro, and I'm sure a lot of other people were theorizing prior to the leaks were even available to the community, the playing ground for theorizing was just equal. Everybody could come up with anything that they thought of, but I believe nobody in the community was thinking of a multi-layered reaction system, and that's exactly what Dendro is. However, don't let that scare you, because it is not as crazy as it sounds, and when it comes to actual usage, it's not as complex as what the description makes it sound to be. Just know that I can see Dendro meta just taking off like a rocket ship when newer Dendro characters that are more capable at doing stuff such as off-field applications, dedicated buffers, as well as just more matured kits when it comes to the Dendro playstyle. A great example of this would be a character like Eula versus a character like Ayaka. They're both cryo, however, due to the nature of their kits, the characters play incredibly differently and they actually run with very different teams. Understand, people, just because a character is Dendro or just because a character is Electro, Pyro, Hydro does not really define exactly how they're going to be played and what units they're going to be paired with. That all depends on the details as to how their kit will function and what kind of damage scaling they have. Understand that right now we have characters that scale off of EM, HP, defense, attack, and some even energy regen. So combining that then with the elemental reactions we have available, including all the traditional one and now the additional Dendro reaction, I'm sure you guys can see just how exciting things can get. Just as exciting as the sponsor for this video, which is going to be the Huawei App Gallery and Dragon Trail. For those of you who don't know, Dragon Trail is doing a special limited time offer for those who download and play the game through the Huawei App Gallery. You can use the link down below to download it and run it on an emulator if you're on PC, or for Android users, you can just get it on your phones. Huawei App Gallery offers many discounts, cashback, and even rebate offers for many games and apps. So if you happen to find a game that you are interested in trying out and see that there is a promotion for it, why not just register through the Huawei App Gallery? After all, it is completely free. From August 25th to September 11th, App Gallery has an exclusive deal for the newly released game Dragon Trail, where you are able to download and register to play Dragon Trail using a Huawei account and set your region to the United Kingdom or Ireland to participate in this special exclusive Huawei App Gallery deal. But don't worry, you can change your region in less than a minute from the Huawei App Gallery. Simply go to the Me tab, then to Settings, and scroll down to Country and Region, then select the United Kingdom or Ireland. Once you got that done, let's now talk about the promotion. First, we have the Lucky Draw. When you download and install the game, you are eligible to spin the wheel once and have a chance at winning one of 3 Huawei devices as prizes: a Huawei Mate Pro, Huawei FreeBuds Pro, and a Huawei Band 6. Next up, we have daily discount coupons for up to 40% in-game purchases. So for those of you looking to drop some dollar bills in the game, this one's for you guys. But don't worry, we did not forget the free-to-play players out there. You are all able to get a free Huawei exclusive offer that's worth €8 in-game for Dragon Trail. Now, all of these offers are available to all users who download Dragon Trail from the Huawei App Gallery app and use their storefront. Also, just a side note, you can log into App Gallery games using third-party logins such as Google and Facebook. All links are down in the description, including details to this special campaign, the App Gallery download link, as well as the Discord link for App Gallery. If you have any additional questions for them, thank you again to App Gallery and Dragon Trail for sponsoring this video. So Dendro is good, but it is also a little confusing. But don't worry, it's good, and it is likely what we will be using or predominantly using for the foreseeable future going forward. Okay, I want to talk about how exactly does Dendro impact the current meta situation, because content creators seems to be going hard on the Dendro OP, Dendro new meta, but very few are actually touching on exactly how it achieves this, like the intricacies. And I am always fascinated by how we've come from traditional reactions such as Vaporize, Melt, to metas with Electro Charge, to metas with mixed elemental reactions that kind of achieves what Dendro does by itself. For example, Vape Load is achieved through multiple reactions synergizing with each other's, which is Vaporize and Overload. So you guys can already see the bud of this concept where it comes to multi-layered reactions, but it could only be achieved through mixing unique reactions in the previous meta. And it's so smart for HoYoverse to kind of see this, take this idea and develop it for the Dendro utility. And this is truly now what the shining point of using Dendro reactions has become. It's multi-layered mechanics. But before we talk about the new, we have to go and talk about the old, because the whole point of this is to see where we came from and what has changed along the way. So let's go back in time all the way to the beginning, right? For the majority of Genshin's release, Vaporize was considered the best, and when it comes to breaking the damage ceilings, it's always Vaporize. Now some of you guys are like, what about Melt? It has the same damage scaling numbers, but the problem with Melt was that we just never got really good characters that utilizes Melt extremely well. I mean, Melt Ganyu is probably the most well-known option, but apart from that, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly how Melt has dominated the meta for any extended period of time. Now you guys would also say like, oh, but yeah, no, Vaporize only has Hu Tao. Well, Vaporize has Hu Tao, Vaporize also has Yoimiya, and to a certain degree, Vaporize also had Diluc and Klee, and even Xiangling was getting in some of that sweet Vaporize popularity. So the same couldn't really be said for other cryo characters such as Ayaka, Eula, and Shenhe. So Vaporize was truly carrying this aspect of the meta here, right? But as new content and enemies were added to the game, along with units for the players to play around with, more playstyle rose up, right? For example, Ganyu introduced the freeze meta through Morgana, and later also was used down the line as a great candidate for a melt team. But the freeze meta did not mature until Ayaka came out, and that really didn't come full circle until Kokomi came out to give her one of the best off-field hydro applicators to really unlock Ayaka's potential for maximum damage output on field. Even though it did not contribute more damage, it allowed you to bring a secondary cryo unit to lock monsters in place, so Ayaka could come on field, use her burst without having to worry that the monsters were somehow gonna step one step to the left and have your entire burst miss them, right? Then let's talk about Tartaglia, who popularized taser teams when he came out, which was also then further utilized by Kokomi, right? We can all agree Kokomi taser teams are extremely fun and brain dead to play and very, very powerful, but they existed with Tartaglia. It's just newer characters can take the same features and make them shine even more. Eula is single-handedly carrying the entire physical DPS meta, while Geo is just sniffing glue and clapping cheeks. It's just been happening since the dawn of time, alright? Since Genshin's inception, this is pretty much what it's been like. Now, of course, you guys be like, oh, what about the other two elements you didn't mention? Well, yeah, Electro is an element that has been living in the shadow of Hydro, considering you needed both for Electro Charge, but for some reason, Hydro is always perceived as the multi-talented kid in class, while Electro is just your average kid. You never really talk about the average kid unless they are paired up with the multi-talented one, in this case, Electro Charged. And unfortunately, when Electro is alone, it just seems to be average or maybe even below average, but people always point to them when they're together and try to justify it that way. And last but not least, Anemo. This element is the single reason why the meta has remained, in many people's opinion, stale for so long. The ability for 40% resistance shreds is nothing to scoff at. If I were to make an analogy, it would be like having a Nemo on your team for the most part was as important as having like a sharp knife in the kitchen. Right, sure, you can do with a dull knife, but that's only going to make the process slower and risk getting yourself injured. It was a great tool for people to utilize and dominate content with, but that all changes with the arrival of Dendro. And this is where you kind of do your drum roll and get excited, because due to Dendro not being able to react with a Nemo, a lot of people are saying, well, that's Dendro's loss. Dendro now is just gonna be crap because it doesn't react with a Nemo. But just like all introductions of new metas, there will always be people who resist. There will always be people who shut down the idea of something new. If it doesn't work with the old, then it is utter garbage. But I'm here to tell you guys, Hoyoverse has designed this with a lot of thought. Now, it's not perfect, at least not now, because the argument right now is that for Dendro to have shred, you need to bring the new Dendro artifacts. However, at the same time, it's not as good on Dendro characters, at least not on the Dendro characters we have currently available. It almost feels like you have to give up some characters best in slot on the team to run this artifact so you can get the Dendro shred on the enemies to maximize Dendro DPS. So for example of Tighnari, right? I am bringing Tighnari, but I want to run the Gilded Dream set on the Tighnari and bring the Dendro set for another character on the team. However, the problem with that is no one else on the team really benefits from the 4-piece Dendro set unless I'm running a Dendro character, which currently right now is just the Dendro MC and Kale, which you can argue, well, that works, but what I've found with Tighnari is he doesn't really need 2 Dendros on the team. I really enjoy 2 Electros, and Electro characters are able to really capable of boosting the damage far into the stratosphere and just make this whole comp feel a lot more satisfying to play. Now, this could change, like I keep saying, with the introduction of new and better off-field Dendro characters. That's when that set really is able to show its true colors, because now you can bring a great set for the on-field carry and also a great set for the off-field carry. So to a degree, this problem will be challenged with the arrival of new characters. Will this be a long-term issue for the Dendro meta, or is it just a temporary one? All right, with that said, let's talk about some of the reactions, because I think this is going to be the most fascinating part. Starting with the first layer of reaction between Burning, Bloom, and Quicken. These 3 are pretty much what most people know, and then followed by this is where the fun really starts. You see, right now with my team, I'm playing a Bloom and Hyper Bloom team while also playing a Quicken and Aggravate team. Now, you guys might be wondering, like, what are you talking about? You see, when Hydro interacts with Dendro, it creates Bloom buds, these little green buds that drop on the ground. And if you further interact with those buds with either Electro or Pyro, you are able to proc a secondary reaction known as either Hyper Bloom or Burgeon. Now, let's not talk about Burgeon right now, because that's going to way overcomplicate this. What I'm currently playing is Hyper Bloom when it comes to the Bloom reaction, because I have Kokomi on the team, right? I have Kokomi, I have Tighnari, so I'm able to get these Bloom buds. However, I'm also able to play Quicken and Aggravate. Now, this is where people get a little confused. Like, okay, so you're playing like what, 4 reactions in this one team, and you have 3 elemental typings. How does that work? It is because of the nature of the Dendro reactions I'm able to do this. And to be honest with you, I can easily take out one of the Electro characters and put in someone like Zhangling to get even more wild, but that really gets way too complex, and I think that only hurts the team as opposed to add to it. In the future, there's gonna be Pyro characters that are designed for Dendro reactions. I think Dehya, that's the character that a lot of people are excited about. She likely will be designed around Burning and Burgeon. So if you want to play her maybe in a more traditional team such as Melt or Vaporize, she may not be as good, but there will always be people who look at her and be like, oh, she's crap because she can't Vaporize, right? I wouldn't be surprised if she does come out and she completely leans to the new metas with Burning as well as Burgeon, as opposed to Vaporize and Melt. You see, these secondary reactions aren't as complex as people make them out to be. As I mentioned way earlier in the video, that the concepts of secondary reactions already existed in Genshin, and a lot of people already experimented with vape load teams to know that they are not as complicated as people make them sound to be. For the most part, it's a passive thought, it's a passive application, it's just part of your DPS rotations. If you're to point the finger at me and ask me, well, Walrus, exactly what part of your rotation does Hyper Bloom happen, I'm not going to be able to tell you, but I know that with my Tighnari rotation, I use Tighnari, I use his elemental skill, I use his 3 charge skill, and I use his burst. And all the meanwhile, my Yai Miko totems are on field, Fischl's Oz is on the field, as well as Kokomi's jellyfish, and they're just doing their own thing while I'm also doing my own thing. And that just happens to proc Aggravate, Quicken, Bloom, and Hyper Bloom all at the same time, creating this wonderful vortex of Dendro Electro devastation upon the enemies. Right, with reactions such as Aggravate and Hyper Bloom, you're able to build off and branch into other playstyles with actually close to no effort. It's not so complicated that you need a PhD in Dendro reactions, but having them as options can significantly heighten the Dendro experience. For example, you can chain Bloom with Hyper Bloom, which scales with Electro, or you can go with Burgeon, which scales with Pyro. It's not like because Hyper Bloom exists, now Pyro is not an option. You chose to go into Hyper Bloom, but you could have chose to go into Burgeon. That's the beauty of this. It doesn't exclude Pyro from this equation. It only excluded Pyro from the variant, if that makes any sense. Now, both of these secondary reactions, they do different things, but the base for their existence is the Bloom reaction, which works with Hydro, right? That's the beauty of this. Look how many elements are involved in this one instance of reaction potential. Now, this allows for 3 element teams to play your favorite game of random BS Go. And I say this with the most confidence because honestly, the vast majority of the players will have no idea what the hell they're doing, but they're just going to be pressing buttons, things are going to be happening on screen, and you're going to be doing really, really good damage because it's set up in a way where you almost can't screw this up as long as you know proper character rotations. And really, to be frank with you guys, random BS Go might be the new meta as long as you have good and consistent off-field applicators. Finally, let's talk about the elements that are not included in the Dendro meta. A lot of you guys might feel like, well, you know, that's just making things boring, and excluding these elements feels like Hoyoverse is cheaping out. But on second thought, I did think about this too, and to be honest with you guys, it's important to leave some of these elements out so that the old reactions still have a place in the new meta. The goal here was never to exclude all of the old reactions, but add Dendro into the mix and give Dendro and elements who needed a little bit of facelift, namely Electro, to have a more concrete position in the metasphere as well as options. As I mentioned before, Pyro was really struggling to work with Cryo, so instead of forcing that down our throats and knowing that, well, Vaporize has already solidified itself in the meta, let's just give Pyro something else, because Cryo already had Freeze, which is a very powerful option in the meta, and I would think that it's going to continue being very dominant. Whereas Anemo was heavily overutilized, and Geo was always designed to sniff glue in a corner by itself. With all that said, I'm really excited for the Dendro meta, and I'm sorry this video took so long, but if you made it all the way to the end, make sure to comment down fluffy years, because holy smokes, you're a champ for watching through all of that. I hope you guys are just as excited as me. I'm trying my best here to explain just how insane the Dendro reaction is and how it impacts the meta while also being incredibly fun and engaging to play. But until next time, I really do urge you all to stay safe and try and experiment more with Dendro. It is a lot of fun. Until I see you again, peace, bye.